The gym stands still. The lights are low, a soft hum from the air conditioning, the echo of a single basketball bouncing in slow motion down the polished hardwood. The rebound, the rise, the net barely stirring as the ball swirls in the air and whispers, swish. Right there, in that quiet moment, lies the story of a man who seemed too small for the stage, yet changed the game forever. This is the story of Wardell Stephen Curry II, but not just the stats, the rings, the highlight reels. No, the gentle cadence of the court at midnight, the distant hush of sleeping cities, the steady heartbeat of ambition without arrogance. Tonight, I invite you to step into that rhythm, to drift with the bounce, inhale the smell of leather and floor wax, hear the distant rush of a crowd not yet assembled, the warm zip of a jersey snapping back into place. In that hush, we begin. Imagine a young boy, smaller than many expected, standing at the three-point line, heard before seen, known before believed in. He takes his shot. The net quivers. A universe shifts. Because in the world of the National Basketball Association, size mattered for decades. Wingspan, height, length, dominance. The giants roamed the paint. The guards darted around them, but seldom dictated them, until someone came who whispered instead of shouted, who measured not in inches but arc, accuracy, audacity, the undersized hero, the quiet apostle of the long ball, the man who draws the court in new geometry. Before we journey through his neighborhood, his backyard, his college gym, his ankle sprains and championships, we pause here in the gentle darkness where the balls drop and the faint bounce echo in the hush. Because every story worth telling begins in the unlit space just before the spotlight, and every legend begins with a singular sound, the basketball meeting the court. Tonight, we will trace how a boy from Charlotte, North Carolina, child of an NBA sharpshooter father and fiercely disciplined mother, grew into a phenomenon. We will explore the hours when no one watched, the ankle guards, the tape around fingers, the long twilight shots before school. We will feel the tension of being told you're too thin, too short, not quite built for this league, and we will taste the sweetness of proving them wrong, quietly, repeatedly, with no fanfare but the splash of net. If your eyes grow heavy, let them. Let the ball bounce in your mind. Let the court stretch out before you like midnight water. Let the hush become home. The story of Stephen Curry is not a roar. It is a whisper that turns into a roar. The world changed while the ball hung in the air, while the hoop shook from the inside, while one shot altered everyone's expectation of what's possible. So breathe in the scent of the hardwood, the faint squeak of sneakers, the distant hum of expectation. The night is long, the journey expansive. Stay with me, and together we'll walk through every quiet step, every secret practice, every thunderous moment that followed. Because this isn't just a sports story. It's a story about faith, about precision, about joy, about someone small in stature but immense in belief. And so, in the hush of the gym, The ball rises again. Let us follow its arc. The evening sky over Charlotte hangs low and gentle, the kind of blue-gray that seems to promise both rest and the faint echo of possibility. In the driveway behind a modest house in this city, a young boy shoots a basketball. The rim is lower than regulation, the net worn, the asphalt cracked, but every bounce echoes like a heartbeat, pulsing with hope. That boy is Stephen Curry, and his story begins here, in the steady glow of suburban lights, beneath the long shadow of a career he had yet to make his own. Stephen was born on March 14, 1988, in Akron, Ohio, during his father Del Curry's time in the NBA, but he grew up mostly in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Del spent a decade as a sharpshooting guard and became a beloved figure. The sounds of basketball followed Stephen everywhere. His father's warm-up shots in the gym, the swoosh of the net after one of his father's threes, the hum of game day crowds on television, and the quiet promise of that hoop in the driveway. In that house, the rhythm of basketball was as natural as breathing. Inside the Curry home, the world was both ordinary and extraordinary. Family dinners, jokes at the table, his younger brother Seth Curry running around chasing a ball. These were the anchors. His mother, Sonia Curry, a former college volleyball player, kept the household grounded. Basketball was not the whole world, only a part of it, but it was there, always, just outside the door, a promise, a challenge, a melody. There were afternoons when Stephen followed his father to the gym in Charlotte. While Del juggled pre-game drills, Stephen sat in the stands or by the wall, leather ball in hand, copying his father's form, imagining his own arc, hearing the echo of the bounces. On some nights, after the game lights went out and the arena dimmed, Del let him shoot on the court, just him and the hoop, the spotlight off, but the expectation quietly humming. Every shot followed by the soft drag of sneaker on hardwood, the sigh of net, the hush before the next bounce. In those moments, Stephen was small in stature, but large in heart. Tall enough by childhood standards, but in a world where guards were taller still, his growth felt measured not in inches, but in intention. His father's legacy hovered in the air, but so did the question, could the youngest Curry carve his own path? The driveway hoop became his proving ground. On certain spring evenings, you could step outside the house in Charlotte and catch the tang of cut grass, the distant hum of a lawnmower, the sizzle of light fading, and the rhythmic thump-thump of a ball hitting the driveway. That sound became comfort. It became ritual. It was the noise of a dream being built in quiet. In his high school years at Charlotte Christian School, Stephen leaned into the family's culture of humility and repetition. He was never the loudest kid in the gym. He didn't demand attention. Instead, he absorbed lessons. Watching his father's shot selection, his mother's calm discipline. If Del's legacy was precision, Sonia's was presence. Stephen learned both, weaving them into his own game. He remembers laying out his training regimen in the dusk of a cold driveway. Shots until the rims clanged twice in a row, the net held still. The tape on his fingers from early blisters, the worn-out sneakers, the sigh when a jump shot rimmed out, his mother's words echoing softly, "Finish your homework, then you shoot." Basketball was not rewarded before the chores. Responsibility came first, and at night, when the game lights faded, he replayed his father's moves in his mind, the push-off, the hop and follow-through, the wrist flick sending the ball arcing high above the rim. He considered the geometry of it all, not because a coach taught him that language, but because a 12-year-old boy's mind reached for meaning beyond the bounce. Charlotte watched him grow. It wasn't a city of sudden stardom. It was a place of steady watches, of locals recalling that Curry kid, tape on fingers, socks pulled high, the skinny guard trying to find space. Some nights his father's teammates would carry him off the court after drills, and Stephen would wave at them shyly, the gym lights dimming behind him. It was routine. It felt safe, but beneath that quiet routine, something was stirring. In the summer evenings when the sky pinked and the air held both warmth and expectancy, Stephen would step on the outdoor court near his home. The hoop's rim was just slightly lower than regulation, but to him it felt just right. He'd warm up with 3-point shots from the corner, then move to the top of the arc. Every shot held purpose. Every rebound was collected, returned, shot again. The air smelled of cut wood indoors or of concrete and grass outdoors. The night insects chirped in cycles, and beneath all that natural hush, the ball found its rhythm. What the young boy didn't yet know, the hesitations others had about his size, his slender build, his quiet demeanor, would all become fuel. What felt like a limitation would become his signature. But to feel that, he first had to embrace the rhythm of the hoops in Charlotte. The driveways, the small arenas, the family dinners, the blueprint his father left and the space he would claim. He watched his father from the bleachers and asked questions. He heard his father say, "Play your game, Steph. Don't copy mine." And in those words, he found freedom. The court belonged to him just as much. He didn't need to replicate Dell's jumper. He needed to discover his own arc, his own tempo. In the stillness of the Charlotte nights, when the ball's bounce faded softly into the pavement and the streetlights hummed their low drone, Stephen Curry learned to listen. He learned to shoot. He learned to wait. And most crucially, he learned to believe before the world was ready to see. The echo of a bouncing ball followed Stephen everywhere, to school, to the local gym, to quiet afternoons when the sun dropped low behind the Carolina trees. But outside of Charlotte, not everyone heard that same rhythm. Beyond his hometown, the whispers sounded different, too small, too thin, not strong enough for the college game. High school basketball in the early 2000s was a world ruled by measurables: height, wingspan, vertical leap. Scouts with clipboards sat in folding chairs, staring through narrow eyes, measuring futures by inches. Stephen Curry, barely 6 feet tall and weighing less than most upperclassmen, did not fit the blueprint. His jump shot was clean, his handle sharp, but the numbers didn't shine on paper. He played at Charlotte Christian School, a private academy where he averaged over 20 points per game as a senior, led his team deep into state tournaments, and earned all conference honors. But college recruiters weren't swayed. He dreamed of wearing the powder blue of North Carolina or joining Duke just a half-hour away. But when he visited their summer camps, coaches saw a small guard with a thin frame and polite manners. They didn't see a revolution waiting to happen. Stephen would go home from those camps quiet, replaying every missed shot, every skeptical look from a recruiter. He'd sit on his bed, still in practice gear, and trace invisible arcs in the air with his fingers, the shape of a perfect jumper. He wasn't angry, just patient. His parents, Dell and Sonia, saw the disappointment behind his calm smile. "Keep working," Dell told him. Your game will speak for itself. That became his mantra. Let the work talk. He wasn't blessed with size, but he had rhythm. Every motion was practiced. Catch, dip, rise, release. A smooth motion learned from years of mimicking his father's shot, refined through repetition that bordered on ritual. He'd shoot until the lights on the driveway flickered out, and then keep going until the shadows swallowed the rim. There were moments of doubt, quiet ones. Nights when the air was cold enough to sting his fingertips, and the ball's bounce echoed louder than it should have. Nights when he wondered if maybe the scouts were right, if maybe the dream was meant for bigger bodies. But then he'd look at the rim, exhale, and shoot again. What separated Curry, even as a teenager, was his faith, both spiritual and personal. Sonia, his mother, insisted the kids pray before games. It wasn't a ritual of victory, but of gratitude. Play with purpose, she'd tell him. Whatever happens, honor God with your effort. Those words anchored him. That grounding allowed him to play free, even when the offers didn't come. One by one, the big programs passed. Duke, UNC, Wake Forest, NC State. The letters came from smaller schools instead, mid-majors with limited TV time, but none of it dulled his focus. If the path wasn't clear, he'd build his own, and that path found its first step at Davidson College, a small private school just north of Charlotte. Head coach Bob McKillop had seen Curry play at an AAU tournament, seen past the frame, the thin arms, the hesitant confidence. McKillop saw something in the fluidity of his shot, the quick release, the body control. He's special, McKillop said quietly to his staff. He just doesn't know it yet. When Davidson called, it wasn't with flash or fanfare. It was a simple conversation, belief offered without promises. You'll need to work harder than everyone else, McKillop told him, but we'll give you the chance to do it. That night, Stephen sat in his room, phone still in hand, heart beating like the rhythm of a dribble. It wasn't UNC, it wasn't Duke, but it was someone who believed. Sometimes that's all it takes. The decision was easy after that. He committed to Davidson, a small school with fewer than 2,000 students, a tiny gym that could barely hold a crowd, and a basketball program not known for producing pros. But Stephen didn't see small. He saw opportunity. Before leaving Charlotte, he spent one last summer drilling his fundamentals. Every morning before breakfast, he shot 500 jumpers. Every evening, 500 more. His neighbors joked they could set their watches by the sound of his ball, the same rhythm day after day. There's a quiet beauty in persistence, in working without recognition, without spotlight, without guarantee. Those months between high school and college built the foundation for everything that would follow. Each missed scholarship became a weight that strengthened him. Each rejection letter became a spark. When fall arrived, he packed his bags, a few clothes, a Bible, his shoes, and a basketball, and drove the 30 miles north to Davidson. The world still didn't know his name, but deep down, Stephen Curry did. He believed not in what others said he lacked, but in what he knew he had: a shot, a rhythm, and a faith too stubborn to break. As his car disappeared down the road, the streets of Charlotte fell silent again. Only the faint echo of a ball bouncing on a driveway remained, a small sound carrying the weight of something that would one day change the world of basketball forever.
The road to Davidson winds past quiet Carolina hills and tree-lined stretches of road where the air smells faintly of pine and rain. It's not the grand arrival of a future superstar. It's the beginning of something small and hidden, a spark flickering under the cover of night. When Stephen Curry stepped onto campus, he was a freshman without hype, a name not yet whispered on national broadcasts, just another thin-armed kid carrying a ball under one arm and belief in the other.
Davidson College was intimate, almost quaint compared to the big programs that had passed on him. The gym, Belk Arena, sat tucked into the heart of campus. Fewer than 5,000 seats, wooden bleachers that creaked when students stomped. The banners were minimal, the expectations even smaller. But that suited Stephen. He had grown used to being underestimated. In this quiet corner of North Carolina, he could work without noise. Coach Bob McKillop had built a program on fundamentals and faith, not blind optimism, but trust in effort, precision, and discipline. He saw in Stephen something he couldn't coach, a rare mix of humility and fire. McKillop's first instruction was simple: play your game. Don't chase approval. Stephen's debut wasn't smooth. His first college game brought frustration. 13 turnovers against Eastern Michigan. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that talent alone wasn't enough. Afterward, in the locker room, he sat quietly, towel draped over his head. McKillop didn't yell. He simply said, "You'll be fine. The mistakes are proof you're trying." From that moment, Curry sharpened himself. Every day after class, he'd slip into the gym, headphones hanging around his neck, the sound of sneakers echoing through empty space. Shot after shot, he rebuilt his confidence. The rim became familiar again, the bounce predictable, the net a kind of prayer.
By mid-season, the country began to take notice. The boy who'd been overlooked by the powerhouses started to carve up defenses with an elegance that felt effortless. The release was quicker, the arc higher, the accuracy mesmerizing. His freshman year ended with an average of more than 21 points per game, breaking school records and silencing every whisper of doubt. But even that was just the warm-up act. Then came March 2008, the moment when the quiet became thunder. Davidson entered the NCAA tournament as a number 10 seed, a team barely mentioned by analysts. Their first opponent, Gonzaga, a perennial tournament darling. Under the bright arena lights, with cameras finally turning his way, Stephen Curry looked more like a boy than a killer. But when the ball went up, something ancient stirred. The same rhythm he'd honed in driveways, the same calm forged in rejections. 30 points, 40, 42. Each shot seemed lighter than air, each possession slower than time. The crowd, initially polite, became unhinged with awe. Students painted their faces red and white, chanting his name as if it had always belonged among basketball legends. Then came Georgetown, a powerhouse with NBA-sized athletes and a towering reputation. Davidson trailed by double digits. The commentators spoke about effort, about pride in small schools. But Curry wasn't done. He hit a series of impossible threes, off the dribble, off screens, from distances that made the crowd gasp before they cheered. When the buzzer sounded, Davidson had upset Georgetown. Curry walked off the floor, expressionless, breathing slowly, heartbeat even, faith intact.
Next came Wisconsin, another giant, another storm of threes, another victory. For a fleeting week, the nation couldn't stop watching. This tiny college had become the eye of March Madness, and at its center was the quiet, smiling kid from Charlotte who refused to play by anyone's limits. Davidson's run ended against Kansas in the Elite Eight, a one-possession loss, the kind of heartbreak that feels both cruel and divine. The final shot, a contested three, rimmed out. Curry stood frozen for a moment, then smiled. "It's all part of the plan," he said softly afterward, his voice steady despite the tears. In that moment, something shifted in the basketball world. Scouts who once ignored him now rewound game film, whispering about range, composure, and mechanics. Kids in driveways across the country mimicked his release, imagining themselves as the next unheralded shooter who could take down giants. Back on campus, Curry became a legend. His name echoed through dorm hallways, painted on posters, printed on student shirts. But to Stephen, the noise meant little. He still carried himself like the same quiet boy who prayed before every game, thanked every teammate, and stayed late after practice. Coach McKillop said later, Stephen turned faith into motion. It wasn't just a phrase. You could see it in his posture, the calm between possessions, the joy after makes, the patience in defeat. After that magical run, Curry faced a choice: declare for the NBA draft or return to Davidson. Most players would have left at their peak, but Stephen wasn't most players. He came back for his junior year, determined to finish what he'd started, to keep writing his story slowly, deliberately. He didn't know what awaited him beyond college. The injuries, the dynasty, the transformation of the sport itself. But even then, in those warm Davidson nights when the crowd's cheers still hummed faintly over the quiet campus, he knew one thing for certain: belief, when nurtured in silence, can grow louder than any doubter's voice. And so he stayed, shooting under flickering gym lights, the sound of the net a lullaby in the still air, a small schoolboy rewriting what destiny could look like. The air inside Madison Square Garden on June 25, 2009 was thick with anticipation. Rows of young men in sharp suits lined the waiting area, smiles tight, hearts louder than the applause. Stephen Curry sat beside his family, hands clasped, the light glinking off the polished floor. He was 21, lean, still carrying the gentle posture of a college kid, yet his eyes burned with quiet determination. It had been a long climb from forgotten recruit to national sensation, and now the question hung in the air. Would the NBA believe in him? He wasn't supposed to get here. Only 3 years earlier, analysts doubted he could handle Division I competition. Now he sat beneath the bright lights, the hum of cameras circling. His suit jacket felt too big on his shoulders. His mother's hand rested gently on his arm. Somewhere nearby, the top prospects whispered about contracts and endorsements. Curry prayed, "Let me go where I'm meant to go," he murmured, when the announcement came. With the 7th pick in the 2009 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Stephen Curry from Davidson College. The sound felt delayed, as if the moment took time to reach him. Then cheers, flashes, a hug from his father, tears from Sonia. The boy who once couldn't get a call from Duke was now walking across the stage of basketball's grandest theater, shaking the commissioner's hand, the weight of a new chapter settling on his shoulders. Golden State was not a dynasty then. The franchise was restless, searching, almost forgotten. The Warriors had spent years near the bottom of the standings, chasing an identity in the long shadow of past glory. Oakland was loud and loyal, but hungry for something new, and into that environment stepped a rookie whose size still drew smirks from defenders. Curry's first NBA season began with promise, but not perfection. His debut was steady, flashes of brilliance wrapped in caution. He played behind veterans, learning the rhythm of an 82-game grind, the travel, the lights, the noise. The pace was faster, the bodies heavier. He absorbed everything quietly. After practices, when the gym emptied, he stayed. Hundreds of shots, then hundreds more. Trainers would shake their heads and flick off the lights. He'd shoot in the dark until only the rim's outline remained.
The first few months revealed what the league already feared. His ankles, fragile, unsteady. A simple turn on a drive could send pain flaring up his leg. Trainers taped him tighter each game, whispering to be careful. But Stephen knew how to live with doubt. He'd done it his whole life. Each injury became another test of faith, another chapter in patience. The 2010-11 season hit hard. Repeated sprains, long stretches of rehab, whispers that he might never last. There were moments when he'd limp through empty corridors after games, the echo of the crowd gone, ice packs taped to both ankles. He'd stare down at his shoes, his reflection caught faintly in the waxed floor, and wonder if this was the edge of the dream. Yet even then, there was no self-pity. God's got a plan, he'd tell reporters, smiling through the soreness. While the franchise searched for stability, Curry kept working. He found solace in repetition, the same ritual from Charlotte, now performed under fluorescent light instead of moonlight. 3-point drills, floaters, footwork. Every bounce was a prayer disguised as practice. His coaches saw the flicker of something special, the balance between audacity and grace. By 2012, with Mark Jackson as head coach and Klay Thompson emerging as his backcourt partner, the first outlines of the modern Warriors began to appear. Jackson gave them a nickname that would become legend, the Splash Brothers. At first, it sounded playful, a marketing flourish. Then the shots started falling, deep, effortless, rhythmic. Fans in Oracle Arena began to stand before the ball even left Curry's hands, already knowing what came next.
Still, the transformation was gradual. The Warriors were good, but not great. The roster was in flux, the system traditional. Curry's brilliance flashed in bursts, dazzling crossovers, high-arcing threes, But the ankles continued to betray him. In 2013, he underwent surgery. Many feared it would limit him forever. Instead, it forced him to reinvent how he moved, more efficient, balanced, fluid. Every injury taught him control. Every setback deepened his patience. Off the court, he stayed grounded. In interviews, he spoke softly, giving credit before taking any. He and his college sweetheart, Aisha Alexander, married that same year, finding peace amid the chaos of travel and rehab. Their small home in the Bay Area became his sanctuary. Evenings filled with laughter, cooking, faith, and the sound of his newborn daughter giggling as he rolled a basketball toward her. Then, something began to shift. During the 2013 playoffs, Curry's shot erupted on the national stage. Against Denver, against San Antonio, he hit threes that seemed to come from another dimension. The arenas gasped, broadcasters ran out of adjectives. His handle danced, his release instant. Even opposing crowds couldn't help but cheer. But behind the noise, his humility never changed. After one of those explosion games, a reporter asked how he managed to stay so calm under pressure. Stephen smiled. "Pressure," he said softly, "it's just the game. Same rim, same ball."
By the time 2014 arrived, the league knew something new was brewing in Oakland. The Warriors were restless again, but this time with potential. There was talk of a coaching change, a shift in philosophy, faster pace, freer movement, more threes. Curry stood in the middle of it all, quiet, prepared, and ready. The same boy who had once been overlooked by recruiters, doubted by scouts, and questioned by doctors, now stood on the edge of redefining how the game itself would be played. The next chapter wouldn't just be about success. It would be about revolution. A transformation born not from arrogance, but from faith, creativity, and the courage to shoot from anywhere. And as the lights dimmed one night after another long practice, he picked up a final rebound, spun the ball in his hands, and whispered to himself, "One more." The shot rose, hung, and fell clean through the net. A soft splash in the silence, the sound of history clearing its throat. The 2014-2015 NBA season began with little warning of the storm about to unfold. Golden State had talent, sure. A sharp-shooting backcourt, a loyal fan base that filled Oracle Arena with noise thick enough to shake the rafters. Then came the change that would alter basketball's map forever. Steve Kerr became head coach. Kerr, a man forged by years alongside Michael Jordan and under the guidance of Greg Popovich, brought a new language to the Warriors. Movement, space, trust, joy. He didn't want isolation play. He wanted rhythm, motion, flow. He looked at Stephen Curry and saw not just a great shooter, but the centerpiece of a new philosophy. "Let's use your gift," Kerr told him in training camp. "Let's stretch the floor until it breaks." And stretch it he did. From the season's first games, something looked different. The ball zipped from side to side like a living thing, bouncing through hands faster than defenses could react. Curry glided through the chaos, his dribble low, his release faster than blinks. He didn't just shoot from the arc. He shot from beyond it, from distances that once lived only in halftime trick contests. At first, defenders laughed. They'd see him pull up from 30 feet and shake their heads. Then the shot would fall, over and over, and suddenly laughter turned to disbelief. The three-pointer had always been a tool, an accessory in basketball's structure, but in Curry's hands it became a weapon, elegant, relentless, merciless. The Warriors weren't simply winning, they were dismantling expectations. Every game became a theater of rhythm, the way Curry's crossover flowed into a step back, the way his shot lifted almost weightlessly, like breath made visible. It wasn't brute strength, it was choreography. Oracle Arena became a sanctuary of noise. Fans would rise when he crossed half court because they knew distance no longer mattered.
He wasn't bigger, faster, or stronger than his peers, but he was freer. That was his revolution. Teammates fed off that freedom. Klay Thompson began lighting up from the wings. Draymond Green anchored the defense, while igniting fast breaks with passes like sparks. The Warriors were fast, fearless, and fun, a word rarely used in professional basketball. The 2014-15 season built like a crescendo. Curry's confidence expanded until it bent reality itself. He'd dribble into double teams, spin, retreat, and launch. The ball would arc high enough to disappear into the rafters before falling like a whisper through the net. Opponents couldn't adjust fast enough. Defenses that once packed the paint now scrambled to guard the perimeter, leaving the court open for cuts, drives, and rhythm that looked like jazz played at full speed. The numbers began to tell their own story. 67 wins, first place in the West, an offense that broke records and redefined efficiency. But behind those statistics was something deeper: joy. Curry played with a childlike smile, celebrating with teammates, shimmying after shots, pointing to the sky after every make. It wasn't arrogance, it was gratitude. Ritual and rhythm blended into one. After years of fighting through injuries and doubt, this was freedom expressed through art.
The playoffs amplified everything. In the first round, Curry danced past the Pelicans with impossible step-backs. Against Memphis, he carved through grit and defense with patience and faith. In the finals, facing LeBron James and the Cavaliers, he found himself on basketball's highest stage. For most players, that stage can feel suffocating, every move analyzed, every mistake magnified. But for Curry, it was familiar. It was the same as the driveway in Charlotte, the gym at Davidson, the lonely practice courts in Oakland. Same rim, same ball, same rhythm. The Warriors won the championship, their first in 40 years. Curry lifted the trophy surrounded by teammates who felt more like brothers. Confetti falling like snow in a dream. The world finally recognized him not just as a great shooter, but as the heartbeat of a new era. That summer, as analysts scrambled to explain what had just happened, a quiet truth settled over the sport. Basketball would never look the same again. Kids in parks stopped practicing fadeaways and started practicing deep threes. Coaches began questioning decades of doctrine. Analytics departments lit up with possibilities. But for Stephen, none of that noise mattered. He went home to Aisha and their young daughter Riley, whose voice had already gone viral for stealing the post-game microphone. Their house was filled with warmth, laughter, and the aroma of Aisha's cooking. Championship ring or not, he still prayed before meals, still practiced in empty gyms, still whispered thanks after every make.
When the lights dimmed and he stood alone in that same gym again, he watched the rim glow in the faint yellow of the overhead lights. He thought about the giants of the game, Wilt, Magic, Jordan, Kobe, and realized his legacy wouldn't come from towering over others. It would come from bending what seemed possible. He took one more shot that night. The ball rose, hung, and fell, that familiar whisper of net. Some revolutions happen with noise, others happen with silence. Stephen Curry's began with the sound of a splash, and soon the entire world would be echoing it back. By the fall of 2015, Stephen Curry wasn't just the face of a resurgent franchise. He was the pulse of an awakening. The league, still adjusting to what he had unleashed the previous season, didn't yet realize the scale of what was coming. The whispers of change from 2014 had become full-throated awe. The season would start like a spark and end like an earthquake, leaving basketball forever tilted in his direction. Opening night in Oakland felt different. The Warriors' championship banner unfurled to thunderous cheers, confetti still lingering like gold dust in the rafters. Curry's first shot of the season, a deep three in transition, dropped without touching the rim. The crowd's reaction wasn't surprise anymore. It was recognition. They knew what greatness sounded like. Within weeks, it was clear this wasn't just another strong start. Curry played as if physics itself had loosened its grip. His release became faster, cleaner, more instinctive. He wasn't thinking anymore. He was flowing. Every game felt like improvisation set to rhythm. He'd dribble behind his back twice, sidestep into a three, then turn before it even fell. And it would fall. Always. The stats were unreal. 30.1 points per game, shooting 45% from three, leading the league in steals. But numbers couldn't capture what was happening. He wasn't just efficient, he was joyful. His play carried a sense of liberation. He made impossibility look natural, made risk feel safe. Night after night, arenas filled not just with fans, but with believers. In cities across the country, people came to see the show. A man redefining the limits of a jump shot. Opposing teams tried trapping him at half court, double-teaming him without success. He'd split defenders, glide past them, and hit shots from the logo. Commentators ran out of adjectives. Kids stayed up past bedtime to watch history repeat in motion. The Warriors kept winning, and winning, and winning. Each victory added to a streak that felt mythical. By mid-season, the conversation had shifted from "can they repeat" to "can they be the greatest ever?" At the heart of it all was Stephen Curry, smaller than most, but standing taller than all. He wasn't demanding spotlight. He was creating it, illuminating teammates and opponents alike. Oracle Arena became a cathedral. Every possession buzzed with anticipation, the crowd leaning forward, breath held,
waiting for the next impossible shot. And when it came, when the ball left his fingertips, it was as though time itself slowed in reverence. In February 2016, in Oklahoma City, the world witnessed the moment that symbolized the entire era. Double overtime, tie game, clock ticking. Curry brought the ball up past half court, glanced at the rim from nearly 40 feet, and pulled. The ball soared. Swish! The silence before the roar felt holy. Commentator Mike Breen's voice cracked through television sets everywhere. Bang! Bang! That shot didn't just win a game, it defined a generation. By the end of the regular season, the Warriors had done the impossible. 73 wins, the most in NBA history, a record once thought untouchable, surpassed by a team built on selflessness, speed, and a player who reimagined the art of shooting. Curry became the league's first unanimous MVP, a title that seemed inevitable yet unbelievable all the same. And still, through the flashing cameras and endless interviews, his demeanor never changed. When asked about the record, he smiled softly. "It's all part of something bigger than us," he said. "We just play the game we love." But even revolutions face turbulence. The 2016 finals brought heartbreak. After leading the Cleveland Cavaliers 3-1, the Warriors faltered. Curry, battered by fatigue and injury, struggled under the weight of expectation. Cleveland clawed back. Game 7, Oracle Arena. The world watched. The ball slipped from his hands in the closing moments. The title slipped away too. As the Cavaliers celebrated, Curry stood near half court, eyes distant, hands on hips. Confetti rained down, not gold, but Cleveland's wine and gold colors. For the first time in 2 years, he looked small again. Human. The joy that had carried him seemed muted, replaced by exhaustion and disbelief. Yet in defeat, he found something essential. When the cameras cut away, when the locker room emptied, he sat alone, towel around his neck, head bowed. He whispered the same prayer he'd said since childhood. Thank you for the lesson, because failure, to him, wasn't the end, it was refinement. That summer, he spent hours studying tape, retracing every mistake, every missed rotation. While others questioned the dynasty's durability, Curry went quiet again, back to the rhythm, back to the work. The revolution he'd started didn't die with a finals loss. It was alive everywhere, in playgrounds where kids shot from the logo, in gymnasiums where coaches redesigned offenses, in leagues where spacing and shooting replaced size and brute force. The change was irreversible. Stephen Curry had done more than win games. He had reshaped imagination itself, and though the season ended in heartbreak, the horizon still glowed. The dynasty had only begun to breathe. The summer of 2016 carried an unusual stillness. In the Bay Area, the echoes of that Game 7 loss still lingered. Not as noise, but as a quiet ache. For Stephen Curry, it wasn't anger that filled the space. It was reflection. The confetti had fallen, the handshakes were done, the headlines had faded, but the sting of coming so close, the taste of a championship slipping through his fingers, stayed. He didn't hide from it. He carried it. That off-season, while analysts dissected every missed shot, every rotation, every turnover, Curry was already back in the gym. No cameras, no interviews, just him and the sound of a bouncing ball. The same rhythm that had followed him since Charlotte. Each bounce was therapy, each shot a confession. The season ahead would not be about revenge. It would be about renewal. Then, in July, a ripple tore through the NBA. Kevin Durant, one of the league's greatest scorers, announced he was joining the Warriors. The world reacted with disbelief. Some called it unfair. Others called it destiny. For Curry, it was both challenge and opportunity. Suddenly, the spotlight that had burned on him alone for 2 years now had to be shared.
Most superstars might have bristled at the thought, but Curry's greatness was rooted in humility. He welcomed Durant not as a rival, but as a brother. In training camp, when reporters asked how he felt about sharing the stage, Curry smiled. "It's not about who shines," he said softly. "It's about how we win." That attitude set the tone for what became one of the most beautiful stretches of basketball the sport had ever seen. The 2016-2017 season was poetry in motion. The ball moved like music, flowing through Curry, Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green with near telepathic rhythm. It wasn't dominance through ego. It was dominance through harmony. Curry adjusted effortlessly, sometimes scoring 30, sometimes 15, but always dictating tempo. He was gravity itself, drawing defenders so deep that the floor opened wide for others to create. Every arena they entered felt different. Fans didn't come just to see a game. They came to witness choreography, a new ballet of basketball. Curry's smile, Durant's smooth drives, Klay's silent explosions, each performance a lesson in synergy. The Warriors finished the regular season with 67 wins and entered the playoffs with quiet vengeance. This time, there were no collapses, no fractures. Every game felt controlled, inevitable. Curry averaged nearly 29 points in the finals, darting around screens, splashing threes from impossible angles, laughing as defenders threw up their hands in surrender. When the final buzzer sounded in Game 5 of the 2017 Finals, confetti rained down again, this time in the Warriors' colors. Durant held the Finals MVP trophy, but Curry's expression said it all. Joy, relief, gratitude. He had lost himself in the team, and in doing so, rediscovered peace.
Yet dynasties aren't built on a single season. In 2018, they did it again. The chemistry had deepened, the trust stronger. Even as fatigue crept in, Curry's leadership kept the team centered. He wasn't the loudest voice in the locker room. He didn't need to be. His calm set the tone. When things wobbled, he cracked a joke, grinned, reminded everyone why they played. Reporters noticed something rare. Amid constant scrutiny, the Warriors still seemed to enjoy themselves. The secret was simple. Their leader did. Curry's energy was contagious. Whether he was on fire, hitting threes in flurries, or struggling through shooting slumps, he carried the same composure. His pre-game routines, tunnel shots, quiet prayers, playful dance steps became rituals that grounded both him and his teammates. But the dynasty years weren't without cost. Injuries hit, Fatigue deepened. Draymond and Durant clashed publicly. The laughter that once filled the locker room thinned to nervous silence. When Durant announced in 2019 that he was leaving for Brooklyn, the world wondered if the Warriors' magic had ended. Curry's response was simple: "We'll keep building."
That same year, the 2019 finals brought another storm of heartbreak. Durant tore his Achilles. Klay Thompson went down with a torn ACL. The Warriors, hobbled and exhausted, fell to Toronto. Curry gave everything he had: 47 points in Game 3, countless drives through double teams. But the injuries were too much. The dynasty cracked under the weight of time and circumstance. And yet, when the final horn sounded, Curry didn't hang his head. He embraced his teammates, congratulated the Raptors, and walked off the floor slowly, hands together, thanking fans who still cheered through tears. In the press conference afterward, he smiled, small, tired, genuine. "You don't get to write every ending," he said, "but you get to choose how you show up for the next chapter." That summer, instead of hiding, he stayed in the Bay Area. He visited children's camps, attended charity events, and spent long afternoons with Aisha and their now 3 kids. He took joy in the simple things: school drop-offs, backyard barbecues, teaching his daughters to shoot. His wrist eventually healed. His faith never wavered. When reporters later asked how he dealt with the end of the dynasty's first era, Curry answered softly, "The story isn't over. It's just being rewritten." And that's exactly what he set out to do. The 2020 season began like a ghost story for the Golden State Warriors. The arena lights still glowed, but the dynasty's fire had dimmed. Kevin Durant was gone, Klay Thompson out with injury, Draymond Green battled fatigue and frustration, and Stephen Curry, the once unstoppable engine, broke his left hand just 4 games into the season. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in years, the Warriors weren't feared, they were forgotten. Their record plummeted. The roars of Oracle had been replaced by the quiet hum of their new home, the Chase Center, a gleaming cathedral still waiting for miracles. Curry spent those months not on the court, but in recovery, watching from the sidelines as his team struggled, knowing the only cure was patience. He'd been here before, underestimated, written off, forced to start again. But this time, it wasn't about proving he belonged. It was about reminding the world that greatness, once awakened, never really sleeps. Curry attacked rehab with the same meticulous energy that defined his shot. Each stretch, each drill, each repetition was deliberate. Pain turned to rhythm. Frustration became focus. He worked in silence, often long after trainers had gone home. Some nights, alone in the darkened facility, he'd stand at the free throw line, left hand in a brace, and whisper to himself, "Still mine." By the time he returned in March 2020, the world had changed. The pandemic emptied arenas, muted the crowd noise that had fueled his art. Basketball became surreal, played in bubbles, in silence. But for Curry, silence was nothing new. He had been practicing in silence his entire life. Then came the 2020-2021 season.
A year that was supposed to be transitional, rebuilding, forgettable. Instead, it became an exhibition of willpower. Without Clay, without a stable supporting cast, Curry turned the court into his personal symphony. He led the league in scoring at 32 points per game, defying time and doubt. There were nights when defenses threw everything at him, double teams, traps, bodies leaning into him, and still the shots fell. 40 points, 57, 11 threes in a single game. The form never wavered, even when exhaustion showed in his shoulders. He wasn't chasing numbers. He was reminding everyone who he was. After one particularly dazzling game, a reporter asked how he stayed motivated through the injuries, the rebuilding, the losses. Curry smiled. "You can't take joy out of the game," he said. "That's the one thing I control." And joy was the word. When the 2021 to 2022 season began, the pieces started falling back into place. Klay Thompson returned from injury after 2.5 years, greeted by deafening cheers. The young players, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, had grown. The Warriors weren't the same team as before. They were something new, reborn from scars and memory. Curry led with quiet confidence. He didn't chase another MVP. He just played, free, flowing, unburdened. Early in the season, he passed Ray Allen to become the NBA's all-time leader in three-pointers made, a record that once seemed untouchable. In Madison Square Garden, under those same lights where he was drafted 12 years earlier, he hit the historic shot. The crowd stood in tribute. Opponents cheered. As he hugged Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, his eyes glistened. "That's for every kid who was told they were too small," he said softly. By the playoffs, the Warriors had rediscovered their identity. The same movement, the same laughter, the same brotherhood, just seasoned by time. Against Denver, Memphis, Dallas, each series brought back echoes of past glory. But there was a difference now, calm.
Curry didn't need to prove anything anymore. He didn't need unanimous MVPs or record-breaking streaks. He was playing for love again. In the 2022 finals, facing the Boston Celtics, he gave a masterclass in persistence. Game after game, he carved up one of the best defenses in basketball with precision and grace. In Game 4, on the road in Boston, he dropped 43 points, each one more defiant than the last. The roar of the crowd couldn't shake him. It only seemed to sharpen his focus. When the Warriors clinched the championship in Game 6, Curry fell to the floor, face buried in his hands. The tears came fast, unstoppable, not from relief, but from release. Years of doubt, pain, rehab, and patience all poured out in that moment. He had done it again, not as a young phenom, but as a seasoned warrior who refused to fade. As the confetti fell, he clutched the Finals MVP trophy, a missing piece that had somehow never mattered to him, yet now felt perfectly poetic. "This one hits different," he said through tears. "We found joy again. Back home that summer, the celebrations were loud, but the nights were quiet." In the glow of his kitchen, surrounded by his family, Curry laughed softly as his kids mimicked his jump shot. The world saw a champion. He saw a father, a believer, a man grateful for grace through every stumble. The 2022 championship wasn't just a return, it was redemption, proof that you can lose almost everything and still rebuild something beautiful if you never stop believing.
And when the noise faded, he went back to the gym, just as he always had. Same ball, same rim, same whispering splash. Because for Stephen Curry, the story was never about trophies. It was about faith, rhythm, and joy, and how all three can echo longer than any roar. There's a quiet kind of immortality that doesn't come from banners or statues. It's the immortality of influence, the kind that travels through time, passed hand to hand, court to court, heart to heart. That's the legacy of Stephen Curry, not just a name in record books, but a rhythm that keeps bouncing long after the game ends. When you step into any gym now, high school, college, playground, you can see it. Kids pulling up from the logo, coaches sighing, defenders stepping out farther than ever before. The geometry of basketball has changed, and its map bears his signature. Before Curry, three-pointers were punctuation marks, exclamation points reserved for desperation or celebration. After him, they became language. Teams built systems around spacing, pace, and precision. Analysts who once worshipped height now studied arc, release time, efficiency. A generation of players grew up believing range was limitless because they'd seen it.
The numbers tell one story. Over 3,500 made threes and counting, multiple MVPs, 4 championships, countless records. But numbers fade. What remains is the idea that excellence doesn't always look the way it's supposed to, that greatness can smile, can dance, can worship, can forgive itself for being small, and still dream in full size. Curry's legacy isn't just about skill, it's about permission. He gave permission to players to play free, to shoot without fear, to celebrate joyfully, to lead without arrogance. In a league once defined by physical intimidation, he redefined dominance as elegance. But his reach extends beyond hardwood and highlights. Through his Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, Curry and Ayesha have worked to fight childhood hunger, improve literacy, and create safe spaces for kids to grow. The same focus he brings to his shot, he brings to his service. Deliberate, precise, consistent. He never chased global fame. He chased global good. Faith remains his compass. Tattoos along his wrist, "I can do all things," remind him where strength begins. Every celebration still ends with a point to the sky. Every post-game interview, a quiet mention of gratitude. To many fans, those small gestures became just as inspiring as his shots. On the court, younger players now mimic his warmth as much as his skill. They smile through pressure, dance through competition, love the game openly. In that sense, his revolution was emotional too. He made basketball beautiful again. Ask defenders, and they'll tell you, guarding him is like chasing light. You think you're close, and then he's gone, a blur of rhythm and release.
But what opponents often add, even in frustration, is respect. He makes you love the game even when he's beating you, one player said. And there's something profound in that. To make others love the craft even as you dominate it, that's art. As Curry enters the twilight of his career, the question inevitably lingers. What comes next? The answer, perhaps, doesn't matter, because legacy isn't measured in what remains to be done, but in what has already been set in motion. Years from now, when a kid in Manila or Madrid or Milwaukee dribbles on cracked asphalt, steps back, and lets a shot fly with a grin instead of a grimace, that's Stephen Curry's echo. When a shorter player refuses to believe size dictates destiny, that's his voice. When faith and joy become just as vital as mechanics and muscle, that's his fingerprint on the soul of the sport.
Because Stephen Curry didn't change the game by demanding the world's eyes. He changed it by teaching the world how to see. The arena sleeps. The cheers have faded into soft echoes. The lights have dimmed to a low golden hum that glows on the polished floor, where shoe scuffs still trace the paths of greatness. Somewhere in the distance, a janitor's broom glides across concrete, and the faint smell of popcorn and sweat lingers in the quiet air. It's the kind of silence that holds memory, a silence Stephen Curry knows well. He's still there sometimes, long after everyone has gone, a ball in his hands. No cameras, no crowd, just the rhythmic pulse of the bounce against hardwood. He takes a breath, lines up the shot, and lets it go. The ball arcs high, falling like a piece of starlight, whispering through the net with that soft, unmistakable sound. Splash. That sound has followed him from the cracked driveways of Charlotte to the bright arenas of the world. It's more than a shot. It's a heartbeat, a prayer, a promise that smallness is not weakness, that joy can be strength, that humility can be power. Stephen Curry's story isn't one of domination. It's one of devotion. Every chapter, every injury, every doubt, every impossible three has been written in quiet faith. He proved that the most powerful revolutions don't always roar. Sometimes they hum gently in rhythm with belief.
As the years stretch ahead, the world will remember the records, the championships, the MVPs. But long after those numbers fade, his legacy will live in the moments that don't make highlight reels. The way he pointed upward after a make, the way he laughed with his teammates, the way he bent basketball back toward joy. Because Curry's greatest gift to the game wasn't his range, it was his light. He made basketball something more than sport, something closer to poetry, a place where faith and fun could coexist, where the smallest player could change the biggest world. He reminded us that greatness isn't about how loud you are when you arrive, but how calm you are when you endure. So as the lights of the Chase Center fade, imagine him walking down that tunnel one last time someday, jersey damp, head bowed, smile soft. Behind him, echoes of cheers dissolve into memory. Ahead of him, peace. And maybe, if you listen close enough, you can still hear it. The bounce of the ball, slow and steady, like a lullaby for the game he loved. So close your eyes, let the rhythm slow, let the sound of that shot, that eternal splash, carry you into stillness. This was Stephen Curry, the undersized hero who changed the game forever, the man who turned faith into motion and motion into music. If this story has soothed you, if its rhythm has calmed your mind, stay a while longer.
There are more stories to come, more dreams from the hardwood to drift into. Until then, sleep easy, dream deeply, and let the sound of the net remind you that even the smallest light can shine bright enough to change the world.